Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of OpsCast, brought to you by marketingops.com and powered by the MoPros out there. I'm your host, Michael Hartmann, and today my guest is Julie Hamada. She is the Chief Operating Officer at Monarch Dentistry in, now I forget the city in Canada, but we'll get to there. Toronto. Okay. Julie brings a perspective we do not hear often enough in operations conversations. She came into operations through marketing, and that background still shapes how she leads today. She thinks deeply about customer psychology, retention, the full customer journey, and the gap that often exists between the promise marketing makes and the experience operations actually delivers. I love that. In this episode, we explore what ops leaders can learn from marketing, why retention is still undervalued. Agreed. How customer experience and operational design are tightly connected, and why some of the best leadership conversations happen when you stop staring at the numbers for a moment and just talk. Julie, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I was glad to have you. And I'm sorry, I thought it was Toronto in my head, and I was like, wait a minute. I know so many people now from Vancouver, and I'm like, those are very different.
Yeah, no, we're in Toronto. Like the clinics we have are all over the GTA, but we're based in Toronto.
Got it. Okay. Well, why don't we start with maybe walk us through, I did touch on highlights of your career that you went through marketing to get into a COO role, but could you walk through maybe a little more detail and kind of what are some of the key points and transitions that led you to the COO role?
For sure. So I started my journey in marketing. I loved the people aspect of marketing, obviously the creativity as well, but I was really passionate about understanding the customers, what motivates them, how to communicate value to people to get them to be interested in a specific product or a service or whatnot. And as I was going through my marketing journey, I realized the gap. Operations and marketing were not always aligning. And a lot of the times, as marketers, we create the campaigns, we put all the money and the effort in it and months over working on through the campaigns and launching the campaigns. And then when it comes to execution, you have, the customer goes in and we hear a different experience. And that was just heartbreaking because of the amount of work. And so I always wanted to understand, because that part of the business is not always visible. So the moment the customer walks into the door, how are we now starting as marketers? How are we tracking what that experience looks like? We can perhaps map it, but to actually have control over it is now into the operations arm.
Yeah. And so walking in the door, you're like literally walking through the door for you, right?
Yes, literally. It'd be people walking through the door, and if you're not delivering on, what was communicated through the marketing, or if the staff there or the employees are not aware of what we're kind of the messages we're sending out to through marketing, there's a gap that we destroyed the customer experience. And now we've acquired a patient or a customer that's going to come in once and might not come back again because of the flow of their journey and the experience that they had. And so I wanted to understand what happens. Why is it, instead of arguing with the ops team,
right.
And like, oh, you overpromised, or you did this and we weren't ready to launch. And there was a lot of these conversations where it's like, it's us versus them, where it really should be just one team. But because there's two different departments, you do start having that conversations where it's like, no, you did this on our side and we did this on your side. So I really wanted to understand, and I wanted to be part of that process of saying, I want to be the person that makes sure the patient is getting the experience we promise, because that's what matters. That's how I value retention capabilities there, which is way more, it's easier long-term for growth. Retention will result in long-term growth, whereas acquisition will keep the business going and keep the momentum going, but retention is where the real growth is. And so I wanted to understand that process better. And I got involved a lot with the operations team. So I was, hands on, and I wanted to go in. When we launched campaigns, I was in those. I was in the food industry, so I was in those restaurants. Doesn't matter how far away. I'd go to the busiest restaurants and I try to see what is happening. How are they talking to the customer? Where are the missing links at? And so that was really eye-opening, because I saw also the deficiencies that there were in the operations of how, our messaging and our vision as a company, and where there were things missing. And I'm like, I want to fix this. I want to be part of fixing this. And so that's how I slowly started getting into operations, and I started enjoying it. And managing the operations team became easy because I understood people.
Yeah.
And operations is people, dealing with people every day. So my approach when I came to operations, it wasn't just like, this is our process, this is our system, this is how it's going to go. It was me talking and getting feedback from them. And, operators would look at me and they're like, no, that's just how we do it. And I'm like, okay, but I want to know what they feel about it. How did they think about it? Like, I want to use that feedback loop that we use in marketing to actually fix our systems and process and relaunch campaigns or do better campaigns the next time around. And so when I started applying that, implementing processes and system in the operation realm started becoming more successful. And when people were like, what are you doing? That's different. I'm talking to people.
Yeah, no, it's funny how I remember I had somebody work for me who had come from a military background. He was transferred to my team, came from a military background, leader, and came to me one time with a problem and asked me what to do. Like, he wanted orders, basically, right? And I was like, but you know this better than me. Like, he knew better. And I think people underestimate, right, those people who are the feet on the ground, that they can provide. They know what's going on, and they just want to be heard sometimes.
Their feedback is everything. And it's funny. Earlier today, I had a meeting, a Women of Influence event, where we had different leaderships, and we were talking about, how do you lead people? And I mentioned that. I said, talking to people, understanding the why, understanding what's really happening, where the challenges, where the bottlenecks, because that's where marketing takes a big hit too, where there's a bottleneck. Absolutely. Right? It's like somewhere across this customer journey, somewhere across in those steps or in those department handoffs, something goes wrong. And you can't know from sitting in an office. You can't know what went wrong. You got to either be at the front end or talk to people in the front and then try to understand where something went wrong. And until those fixes are done, then it's an organic feedback loop. Like, marketing will be more successful if those things are fixed. And if those if those things are fixed, the marketing improves naturally internally from the retention point of view. And then you've got this organic growth. And so, it's genuinely have worked. I used a lot of my, understanding people's psychology, knowing things in the world. As marketers, we have to be aware of what's happening in the world. What's trending, what's the in now, what, even politics, what's happening politically, economically, because that all impacts our campaigns. Absolutely. How we deliver messages, who do we target. And so I actually use that, but with employees that I oversee, right? I mean, we have over 200 employees, and I say, okay, gas prices the last 2 days has gone drastically up. The morale, there's a lot going on in the world. There's this, this feeling of like insecurity for some people. What's happening next? There's the uncertainty. And how is that going to impact the morale of my staff? Do I want to be coming down hard on them on numbers now? Or do I use this as an opportunity to gain their trust and say, hey, listen, let's address the elephant in the room. I know things are tough. I know gas prices have gone up. I know these things are happening. I want us to work together, and I want us to work this way to overcome this time and be there for each other. And that's something I did take from marketing, because we had to understand demographics, we had to understand people, and before delivering those things. And so using that in the leadership aspect of operations has worked so well.
It's funny because it harkens back. I probably referred to this, but dozens of times, but one of our early guests was Brandy Sanders, and she said that to be a good operator, you need to know how to play chess and to understand human psychology, right? And it's like, isn't that a great analogy?
Absolutely. I love the chess
Yeah,
part. Like the understanding human psychology, I say
yeah,
it all the time, but the chess, you really,
right,
yes,
right.
that's a
Thinking
really
steps,
great analogy.
thinking moves ahead. Yeah, it's interesting. So I want to go
Yes.
back to something you said reminded me of something in my career. This like going when you said you would go do a campaign, then you would go actually see what happened in the I'll call it in the field, right? I
Yes.
remember at a consulting job I was doing years ago, completely different context, but we were doing some work for a bulk fulfillment of a pharmacy that was part of a big grocery chain here in Texas, and we could gather all kinds of information. We got feedback from the people in the bulk fulfillment one, but it was amazing how much more complete the picture was when we actually did site visits to the stores.
Oh,
And we went to different kinds of stores, different sizes, different locations. And it was so helpful to get that like actual, like, oh, this is what they're going through. This is the pressure.
eye-opening.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Yes.
because you make assumptions, right? We all do. And it was,
Yes.
and we were getting, or even if we weren't making assumptions, we were trust. And it's not that people were not telling the truth, but it's that what they call it, the telephone game, right? It was, we were hearing it from someone else's perspective who wasn't living it every
Yes.
day. But just on the total aside, like the way I handle myself at pharmacies has completely changed because those people are under pressure. Like seriously, like all kinds of things, shortages, shrinkage. What do
Oh,
they call it? Shrinkage when stuff disappears. Yeah,
even my industry right now, the dental industry, we have huge shortage,
yeah,
huge staff shortage. So everyone's overwhelmed. I say that's the most common word I use. I hear every
mm-hmm.
day. I am so overwhelmed. It's becoming such a reoccurring
Yeah,
thing. And when you go, I have a rule, at least once a month, I have to go to locations and more than one location. Even if I just say hello, put on my runners, walk around, see how the clinic is, see how what I put in papers and in emails, if it's actually translating all the way down. Because as the chain gets larger, you're talking to management, and then management's talking to leads, and then leads are talking to friend. And a lot of the time I find that the messaging at the top is not even actually getting to the bottom correctly.
yes,
I would deliver a message, and again, similar to marketing, you have the main message that you're trying to get to your audience, and then, it can be misused and completely misunderstood by the time it gets to, it funnels
very
down.
true.
And I see that all the time. So, I remember thinking when I was in marketing, and it was a mid-sized company that I worked with at the time, and they said, you can do that. I met with another company that had thousands of units, and they actually brought me in to talk to their marketing team to see what am I doing, because we did really well.
Sure.
Our marketing was, we had 2 or 3 people, and our marketing was top notch. So at the time, the CEO said, I want you to come in and talk to my marketing team because we have like 50 people. How are you doing things differently? And the first thing I said is, how many people here have been to units? And they said, well, we have thousands of units. And I was like, but
And
that's actually better, because that means there's probably a unit 10, 15 minutes away from your house,
right.
because we're talking about huge
Yeah,
brands,
yeah.
right? So have you ever just taken your laptop and gone and worked there? They don't even need to know who you are. Just go there and observe what happens. You will come back with so much feedback. And then you look at reviews, and then you start piecing the puzzle together and thinking, oh my God, here's, people are not communicating the messages, or the product looks nothing like the
Right.
images that we've put on, right? I ordered the product and it doesn't look good. And I think, I don't care how big a company can be, I do think that people can find the time to go to the
I think
front line.
it's huge.
And as leaders, it's
Yeah.
important. It's very important. It changes your perspective. And for me, it's always, as I build system, I go back and improve systems as well. And I can only do that by not getting, like you said, assumptions, because numbers tell you what's happening. They don't tell you why it's happening. And I look at numbers every day. Yeah, I look at numbers every day. I'm like, I look at them. They tell me I know what's happening. I can tell you a full analysis of what's happening. But to know why it's happening, you need to talk to people, observe what's happening, and then come back with that feedback and see where you can improve.
The equivalent of that for people who are listening or watching it, who are like B2B marketing ops, is to do, I've said this a million times too, like go sit with your salespeople, right? Because like if you don't know, you're doing all this work to generate leads, and then you go like, why aren't they doing anything? Like, well, maybe you need to go spend some time and see what it's like for them when they receive the leads, quote, right? And then what do they actually have to go through? It is, and really the hardest part for someone like me when I started doing that was to just keep my damn mouth shut. You know, right? like I
Very, very, or you come off very angry. Like I sometimes left like locations. I was so frustrated. And then I tell my boss, I'm like, I hate it because I start seeing so much and I go back with a huge to-do list.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's, I mean, if you sit there and you go, because again, we all like, especially if you're close to something like how these systems work, and you go like, we build all this stuff so they're getting these leads right away, and then, but you don't go like, okay, well, they have to go and they have to go open Salesforce, and then they have to go find the queue, pick the next one, they have to open it up, they have to change the stat, like there's all these things they have to do that all seem small, but they all take away a little bit of time.
And they all, and the easiest thing to measure, Michael, is the leads.
Yeah.
That's why people always look into acquisition. It was so easy for me to tell, oh, I got 30 patients, I did my due diligence, and then, what happened to those patients? I mean, it cost us, I'll give you an example. We have a referral program. And we run Google ads, we have search engine optimization, we run all those sort of things. And with each clinic, there's different dynamics. So like, depends on the demographics. Sometimes flyers, they work amazingly in certain areas. So people are still, into traditional marketing there. And, I do the flyers, I do the mapping and all this stuff, and it works. We get a lot of patients, and with some clinics, it doesn't. And so over time, we've come to know, what works where. And we have a referral program that I put together where if you refer a friend, you get a gift card, and then they get a gift card for coming in, and it's like $30 gift card. And Google, when I get patients through Google, average acquisition in dentistry is about $150 per patient. In each of my clinics across the board, doesn't matter what demographics it is, on average, I get 30 to 40 patients through the referral cards, the referral program. And through Google, I get on average 5 to 7 some clinics. The most I've ever gotten was 10 to 12. But that would still cost me more than the referral card. And the referral cards, because it's a referral, those patients are I have a better chance of retaining those patients because they came in through, the good word and the experience that they have. And so for me, I think a lot of people focus on acquisition and as marketers, we say, okay, there's the 30 patients or we got 150 patients and not understand the journey of what happens after that, the handoffs and where things could go wrong. I genuinely think that those two teams should really just be one team. And, so many people would disagree. They do different things, but you can't clap with one hand. And operations and marketing are like two hands together. They have to be.
I actually interviewed with a company one time where they were wanting someone who had more of a marketing background to work in this case, it was support. It was a software company. And I was like, oh, that's actually a really clever idea, right? You should be, every opportunity, like every interaction through support is a potential to build or lose trust with those customers, right? And therefore have an impact on retention. I don't think they ended up doing it,
Absolutely.
but I thought it was a really interesting idea to embed marketing in like a marketing oriented person in that kind of space.
I would actually, times have changed so much, and I read something interesting in the last few days, and it was things are changing where we are introducing AIs and softwares and into companies, and a lot of the time job descriptions are not. So people would have had the same job descriptions for years. And I think especially from an operations angle, I used to tell them, I want to go and hire marketers as managers too, because I want, if you behave a certain way with patients, if I have a patient walk in and they are greeted well and feel, one time there was I went into a clinic and a patient walked in and it was an older gentleman. And I got up and I said, hi, how are you? Oh my God, it's very cold today. Why don't you let me take your jacket? Because he was struggling to take his jacket off. And I'm like, let me take your jacket. I'll hang that for you. And then I hung his jacket. I'm like, have a seat. Would you like some water? We'll be right with you. And then everybody's like at the front desk is looking at me. They're like, oh, like that's nice. I'm like, that's our job.
That's so funny. Like, that is no longer, like, that sounds unusual. It's weird to me.
Yes, they were just, their eyes were open and they're looking at me and they're like, I'm like, he's like, oh, but he's like an OT, like, he's like, I'm like, it doesn't matter what, I don't care what, anything about this person. They walked in. Do you know how hard it is for us to get you people to walk in? Like when people walk in, there's so much work behind the scene. Marketers are working very hard to ensure people are walking in. And we need very strong people with some sort of marketing knowledge. So all of my managers go through marketing training, every single one of them. In operations, they have one day of their training is marketing. They have marketing weekly calls and monthly updates. And I've actually, the marketing person that I have in charge, I've also trained on how to use our software. Because I'm like, okay, if you see something that if we're getting new patients and then some numbers not making sense, I want you to have the ability to go in and check for yourself. That way you'll know what the software is and you know what they go through to, if they didn't make a note on a new patient or whatever, you know how to go in and audit that. So I do a lot of cross training because it's as simple as this. Brands make promises, operations where the truth is.
Yeah. You used that phrase when we talked. I wanted to get into that, right? You said, I think it was marketers are promise makers and operations are promise keepers or something like that.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. Yes, because that's where, again, marketing is the messaging. It's where the promises are being made to patients or to consumers, and operations is where the real work happens. So again, as a marketer, I can say, well, I did my job. You've got all these new leads now, and it's your job to take it from there, right? Well, take it from there how? Have we created a workflow? Is our training program incorporating marketing? How are they supposed to communicate with the patients? How are we streamlining the process to be continuous? Yes. Because patients don't understand that there's a handoff.
And they shouldn't.
Patients, they shouldn't. It's a continuous process for them. So you're coming in and to you, it's just all one process. The way I look at things, and again, that helped me with operations, is I always look at it as like this touch point. I'm looking at it as a funnel system. I look at it from like a customer journey, and I'm like, okay, so patient is in the clinic. How do I want my front desk to greet the patient? How are we communicating with the patient? Do we notify them about the marketing programs? Do we offer them, the cleaning kit, the whitening kit that we have? And so what I realize is there's that, like, it's a gap because, oh, well, we didn't know we can give him a free whitening. Oh, we didn't know we had to do this. So I said, it's moving forward. It's mandatory that everybody gets trained on marketing and on customer experience, from hygienists. So we had a training for hygienists. How do you greet the patient the moment you go to the front desk? When you grab the patient, say, hey, could you please come with me? How's that going to look like? All the way until they leave your chair and you walk them out to the front. How does that look like? Because that's marketing too.
I'm curious.
that
Yeah, no, I totally agree on all that. I'm curious on how, when you go through that process of going like, what is this process going to be like? Do you, I'm going to guess that what you do is you give them sort of general, like, these are the touch points. I think I'll use your term, right? Touch points or steps in the
yeah.
process. Um, and but it feels like what you're going at is you're doing that, but you're leaving room for personal adaptation to that, right? Like, so, but then you're layering in, you're teaching, whether you call it marketing or customer experience, to those people so that they know, like, here's the process and the flow. Here's how I can,
You're right.
because in your case, right, truly every client is going to be unique and different at a different stage, going through whatever. They need to be able to be flexible about how they interact. So is that,
Yes.
so the process is clear but not rigid? Is that a fair way?
No. Yes, it's not rigid because each clinic actually has a dynamic too. Like each of our clinics, and I allow for that because that's the culture. Like in the industry, you can't, again, you can streamline and create processes, but we can't strip the culture of that clinic away from them.
Right.
Each clinic has something that works for them. And same thing when it comes to how they deal with patients, right? They know their patient more than I do,
Right.
And sometimes when I go in and I'm like, hey, why don't you say this to the patient? Because I always sit at the
Yeah.
front. They don't like it. I'm sure they don't like it. But I like to sit at the front, not only because I want to show them how I would speak to patients and how I would approach things, but I also want to kind of see what's happening in the conversation. And sometimes, I would say like, oh, why didn't you say this patient? Like, why didn't you tell this patient this? And then they're like, oh, because, this and this and this. And so I can't just be like, no, you have to do it this way. I give them a process and I say, if you provide what I've learned to do is put both on the table in the sense numbers and people. So when we had a hygiene department meeting, I said, if we do everything you're supposed to do in that flow of patient, like what you're supposed to provide as per your college,
Yep.
when a patient sits in your chair, if you educate the patient, if you provide the treatment that is required by your college for you to give to this
Sure.
patient, and if you are kind, if you do those three things, your numbers will go up.
Yeah.
And that's a guarantee. I don't even need to look at the numbers. I will know that if you do those things. So I'm not asking you to I'm not asking you to increase your numbers. I'm asking you to do your job in the kindest way possible because nobody wants to be sitting in a dental chair. It's one of the hardest services to
Yes,
sell.
of course.
Nobody comes in saying, yes, I'm going to the dentist, it's people are already nervous coming in.
Yes.
People are scared coming in. They don't like to be there. Some people are
It's
anxious. And
uncomfortable.
so
Yeah.
kindness is the best marketing tool.
Yeah.
Internal kindness.
What's coming through to me is, I guess this goes back to your sort of focus on human psychology a little bit, is it feels like what you're doing is you're building enough structure and setting expectations, um, but building like a trusting situation. So where, yeah, they know that as long as they're trying to do the right thing within some guidelines, right, they're not going to be, you know, slapped on the wrist or whatever, but also, um, being open to getting feedback. It sounds like you're open to that too, because it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's that's my strategy. It's always listening to people. So again, when we first started, I had 40 to 50 employees. Now we're at almost 200. And so now I've done it in departments because I can't, it's more and more people. And again, I'm sure, leaders of thousands of people, well, how do you communicate with everybody? But you can kind of structure it. So I do hygiene departments alone. And again, you can always train people to think with the same, to come across with the same mentality and the same values. And if they practice that, then you can trust these people to lead another department and another group of people. So I do quarterly department feedbacks where we don't look at
okay.
numbers.
I wanted to get to this.
I do not look at numbers. We just have a meeting, a conversation just like this. A lot of the times, of course, with upper management, you have people who are hesitant, more people are quiet. It just takes one person to speak up. And sometimes I call on the people that I know are more, have more courage to speak. So I'll call on a hygienist that's been with us for 7 years. And I say, hey, how do you feel about this new process that we implemented? How do you like the new software? Tell me how you think about it. Do you have enough time for your appointments?
Mm.
Because it seems like a lot of patients are not getting the education that I would like them to get. I have walked into ops and just in the middle, I just put my gown and I walk in and they kind of get like rigid, like, why did she? But I'm like, I want to see what's happening. And, of course, behavior could change when I'm in the room, but I say, okay, well, I've been noticing this. Why is that happening? Is it because you don't have enough time with the patient? Are they giving you enough time in the schedule? And then as soon as I said that, people started jumping into the no, because we need this long. And sometimes we have back-to-back patients and we need to clean the room and we need to do this and we need to do that. And I was like, okay, this is great. And I was making notes. And then I had a meeting with the operations team and I said, moving forward, unless they're working out of 2 ops, I need them to have at least that 5-10 minutes to clean the rooms and get their, other patients, like the room ready for their next patient and procedures and so. 100%. I'm like, give them that ease because if they're working under time pressure, of course they're going to be so focused on getting those logistics done, and they're not focusing on the patient. And the moment we strip away that patient care, we're going to get in trouble. We're going to go into patients are not leaving with that good experience. And then that feedback loop again, it's not a negative one. So, and I did the same thing with assistants, and I met with them and I said, how can we make your job better? What would you suggest? What are some of the challenges you guys face on the daily? And some of them said, okay, so we don't have enough time, we don't get lunches, or we don't do this sometimes. And I went back to operations and said, okay, when the clinic gets to this capacity, I need to have a temp assistant that's only going to sterilize for them so they can just prep the rooms. And that's how I've been improving processes, by just having those conversations. And we see the numbers. Within a month, the boss comes in, he's like, well, hygiene numbers are really up. Like, what did we do? And I'm looking at him and I'm like, well, we had a conversation. He said, you're telling me you talked? And I'm like, yes, we talked, but we also fixed things. So I talked to them. They felt heard. They felt like people are willing to take salary cuts sometimes, Michael, just to work in a place where they feel like they've been heard or that people care, right?
I'm gonna fight back on you. I don't think it's just heard. I think it's heard and then seeing that what you heard actually made a difference.
Yes.
Right? I think that's key. It's easy to go and say, I want to hear all your feedback, and then just do nothing.
Let it go. No, yeah, when we put it in action, and I get feedback from managers, oh my God, my hygienists are so happy. You should see how they're working. They're giving the toothbrushes, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're doing it happy, like they're wanting to do it. They don't feel like they have to. They want to do it, because I also did bring in the perspective of we're here for the patient.
Yes.
If you just give the patient what your college teaches you to do, don't worry about the numbers. The numbers will come. But all I'm asking of you is you have to spend time talking to patients and educating them. And so when the conversation took out the numbers and we had that open where they were able to share their challenges, and I did address them, and they could see that it was addressed, because I actually sent out a memo saying this is how we're going to do things, and I copied all the hygienists so they know that, hey, I was seen and heard. It made a huge difference, an immediate difference in numbers. And so that's why I always say the two have to be on the table together, because that's how you get that's how you get the momentum to keep going.
How long have you been doing those quarterly it's quarterly, right?
Quarterly meetings. So I'm doing them. We've been doing them this year. So this year we started quarterly, but before that, I talked to everybody. So we have WhatsApp groups. And I would actually message them like once a week. I'll message the group, or I say, "Oh, hey, I've been noticing. I seen it. I know what you're doing." Um, I look at numbers and I talk to so managers. We have weekly huddles. So I tell them they have to share wins and challenges and whatnot. And so managers sometimes will text me and say, "My hygienist worked so hard today. She did one, two, three." And so I would email the hygienist and say, "You know what? We're gonna do one, two, three for you. Thank you so much. You've done such a great job." And it would mean the world.
Yeah.
Like it would mean because they'd email back, "Oh my God, thank you so much. I didn't know that you knew I did that. And I appreciate it." And sometimes it's like a gift card goes a long way. And I don't even think it's about the gift card. I think to have upper management acknowledge good work as well as, the bad that's happening or things that are not happening
Absolutely.
correctly,
Yeah. No, was it?
it
Yeah. The
takes a
adult,
lot.
the parent in me is like positive reinforcement always worked better than, you know, negative reinforcement. Right.
Absolutely.
No, and I'm thinking like there are times where I've done this before as so like I end up working in a big company and working with somebody in another team who maybe I knew that team had maybe a negative reputation about their ability to help teams, and had a great experience with someone, and I would make a point of sending an email to that person's boss, telling him like what a great like how great it was to work with that person, and I think, and I'd copy the person. Like I'm not, but
Oh,
I
that's so.
wanted the documentation. One, I thought it was deserved, right? It was the right thing to do. That's probably the most important thing. But I also wanted to make sure that it got to both of them so that when it came time for reviews or whatever, right, they had a specific thing they could point to.
Yes. And again, marketing teaches us what makes a customer feel good, they will buy into
Yeah.
it. It's all related back to feelings, and I think managing people is the same way. It's if they feel good and if they feel valued, appreciated, and same thing with customers. You appreciate and value customers, they come
Yeah.
back. You appreciate and value employees, they'll want to work harder for you. And not because, oh, I get paid. No, no, no. They'll do it because they value the fact that you value them
Yes, absolutely.
and they appreciate that.
And sometimes they'll even like brand loyalty implies paying a premium or yeah, there's a premium that you're paying. Like you might opt for something that's more expensive or more difficult to get to because you appreciate the it's not even like maybe a real value. It's like not a dollar, but it's a like you just get satisfaction or intrinsic value from that interaction.
Yes, for sure. And I think in dentistry, that goes such a long way because, again, people don't want to come in. So that kindness and that making somebody feel good in a time where they don't feel so
Yeah.
good goes such a long way. We had like had patients get gifts. There's patients who come to managers with food every week. Like they build such beautiful
It's amazing.
relationships, and when I go in and see it, the other day there was a patient celebrating their 90th birthday, and they were with us as the clinic opened, which was took 20 years. And they did a huge birthday party for like they got him cake and flowers and balloons at the
Cake at a
clinic,
dentist office?
and
Come
they
on.
sang. Yeah, they were like the cake and then I know. And then they were singing for it was so nice. And I happened to randomly go to the clinic. I didn't know this was happening. And when I seen it, it was a moment of realization where it was, okay, these are the things that
Yeah.
matter. This is why this clinic does well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. And I had this conversation a lot. I actually had one today with somebody about KPIs and just sometimes to get a KPI that you ideally want is a huge amount of effort and in some cases, right? Um, and you may never get there. Whereas you can do something that's more like what you're talking about, right? Which is it's more about it's a little different and like this is like what's working and what not working like in sales and marketing. I found a lot of luck doing stories like so finding deals that we won and what's the story about how we won together, right? Sales, marketing, whatever. What were the things, and then how can we take that and the lessons we learned there and apply it more generally so that we
Replicate
continue to
it.
be successful. And if I've focused on attribution reporting or building some really complicated math solution for how to measure it, I don't know that it would have the same impact.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like it's hard to measure. It's very like, and sometimes people tell me, how did you achieve these results? Because I look at numbers sometimes and I'm like, wow, that's amazing results. And when I look back, it's like, how did you get to the numbers that you got to there? And when I look back at the process, it was so much of that. Like, when we have a managers meeting, I say, okay, you're doing so good. Can you get up and just tell us what you're doing?
They probably half the time they don't
And
even know what it is. It's just sort of this is what we do.
yeah, and then one of them was like, I did an employee incentives and I have a BAM. I love that. That BAM, the BAM effect. She calls it the BAM effect. And then it's like if somebody hits their numbers, they do like a BAM effect where they all stand up and like do like a high five. And I was like, that's not, and it wasn't like a company wide because I do give them autonomy.
Yeah.
I tell them all the time, if you come with an idea that would work for your clinic, by all means, well, let's try it out. Let's try it, see how it works. And so, she was talking about the BAM and all the managers are making notes and they're sharing what would work. Exactly what you just said, like sharing stories, but they're making notes. And the next meeting, two of them were like, oh, we applied the BAM effect and it worked so well. And the staff are so motivated. And so I think it's hard to measure that and say, this is how much it improved. But then you look at the numbers and the numbers have improved.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. There's a lot of unmeasured value.
Yeah. I think that's about as well put as I think I have ever heard it. Well, we're kind of up against time. Maybe end with this last question, so we've covered a ton of ground. This has been really, really interesting. I think people are going to get a lot from this. Is there anything that we hadn't covered that you want to make sure that like we walk away from this that people heard? Like, I have lots more questions, but we don't have time. So,
Trying to think. Honestly, I think the one message that I want to relay over is listen to people in the front end. And for operations and marketing, it's not a rally race, it's one team.
yeah.
It's not like I've handed this off to you, now we're taking it from here. It really needs to be together all the way through. And some organizations, I'm sure, do it. But I think a lot of the organizations out there are not doing that. And they're continuing to function as these two separate departments. Like there shouldn't be finger pointing, oh, like operations did this and marketing did this. I think the takeaway here is if those two departments work together, it is so powerful. And I've seen it. I apply it every day. And there's so much I take from marketing and I apply to operations, and now vice versa. Operations are starting to take away from marketing. And so I think to work together as one unit and build a journey that goes from, the beginning of the funnel all the way to customer journey to the point where the customer leaves the store, and work with operations and training with those different handoffs would change the ball game.
Yeah.
It's like an immediate organic growth.
Well, I think you hit on the key thing there, which was listening and truly listening, right? And I know for me, like that was really hard for me to learn not to be thinking about what the next question I was going to ask was, or what I was going to say, or worse, getting defensive or offended by what somebody would say, right? I mean, it's,
Yes.
And that is definitely, when I was able to do that, it shifted it was made the kinds of conversations I could have much more robust, where I could open it up to like, give me the feedback, right? And it doesn't have to be, you're doing great. Like, I want to hear what could be better, and I'm not going to be offended. Like, unless you start attacking personally. As long as it's not that, we're good.
Yes, yes. I've heard some tough feedback too, where
Absolutely.
I've actually stopped and I'm like, and I that whole night was just going, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? You know, is there something I can do right? That does that mean I'm not really giving enough positive feedback? And I took it and I was like, and you know, my colleague was like, you need to take it, like, it's okay. You can't take it to heart. And I'm like, but no, there's got to be some truth
Yeah.
in it. And I need to take that back and maybe fix some of the things or some of my approaches. And I appreciate it. It's hard to take, but I love constructive criticism.
Absolutely. No,
That's what I'll
but
call
it's
it.
hard. Well, I think it's hard for a lot of people because it feels painful. But I think also part of it is like no, too many people are in a position to give feedback do not know how to do it well. And I think that's like a
Agree.
topic for a whole nother conversation. But
That is it. We just opened up a
yeah,
whole can.
uh,
I can go on about
I
that
could
for a
too. I
while.
could too. Julie, so much fun. Enjoyed it. This has been a lot of fun. I wish we
Yes,
could continue on. If folks do want to, like, if they
same
wanted to learn
here.
more about what you're doing, want to, get into the referral program, yeah. Uh, what's the best way for them to connect with you
Oh, to
or
connect
to
with
learn
me,
more about what you're doing?
I would say LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. I post a lot. There's a lot happening with the company too. We're going through a huge growth stage right now. But yeah, I would love to connect with people, have conversations. I'm always open to that.
Appreciate it. Well, again, thank you, Julie. It's been great. Thanks to all of our listeners and audience out there. We appreciate you as well. If you have ideas for topics or guests or want to be a guest like Julie, please reach out to Naomi, Mike, or me. We'd be happy to get the ball rolling. Till next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right.